The gentle cry of the seagulls mingled with the crashing of the waves near the boardwalk at Emerald Beach, just north of the pier. Emerald Beach is one of the middle-grade beaches in the area. It was better than Pilgrim Beach, the municipal park-turned-beach south of the harbor, but not as good as Salem Beach, located on the north side. The Emerald Boardwalk is a favorite place for lovers to stroll and look out at the waves. On this quiet and slow night, Carter Holloway and Bryce Johnson sat on the edge of the pier, legs dangling over the side. They were holding hands, their fingers intertwined. Bryce had his head on Carter's shoulder, and Carter had his arm around Bryce. They were a portrait of young love.
The way the lights reflect off the water, it looks like the ocean is full of stars.
You're the only shining star I see, Carter. I'm so happy when I'm with you.
I love you, Bryce.
I love you too, babe.
The couple kissed. They were so entranced in one another that they didn't notice a pale-skinned figure with long, bedraggled, chestnut-colored hair rising from the sea and floating before them above the water. Carter noticed it first, the strong smell of putrefying fish flesh. He turned to look towards the water, catching sight of the figure.
You are both fools. Happiness does not exist. How dare you speak of happiness in the place where I died?
The figure's hand extended towards Carter and Bryce. The boys began to choke. They coughed up water as much as they could until they couldn't fight it anymore. The boys fell backwards, still holding hands, no longer looking like two young men. Instead, they looked like dried-out husks of people, looking just like ancient mummies that shopped at Banana Republic. They were dead. The young woman floated down and landed in between them. She clutched the crucifix on her neck and pulled it off. She laid it down between the two boys. And then, on shaky feet, she took a few basic steps, finally clear after months of madness. She was walking slowly, but she was surely walking towards revenge, leaving wet footprints wherever she stepped. She vanished into the night. My name is Jordan Redfield Wade. By day, I'm a PI working for the NACPD, but by night, my friends, my family, and I fight for the city in a different way. We are the guardians of New Ark City. I promised my mother as she lay dying that I would protect and defend this city from anyone that would mean to cause it harm. I am a protector. I am a guardian. I am Red Wing. Episode 2. Blood in the Water. Nothing quite ruins the morning like getting a call that says there are 2 deceased mummified corpses on the pier. I got the call while I was just settling in for a cup of coffee at the newly renamed Raven Detective Agency. Dean called me and told me to get over there quickly. I got out of the lift and smoothed my detective's trench coat before putting my hands in my pockets, where I began to put on gloves. Dean instinctively turned when I approached, as though he could sense my presence whenever I was around. Even under these grisly circumstances, he still gave me an award-winning grin and came over to give me a kiss.
Hey, beautiful.
Hey, future hubby. So, what have we got here?
It's not a pretty sight.
Since when is the scene of a crime ever pretty?
The Snow White crime scene from the storybook Killer Case?
Okay, name 2.
I could if you wanted me to.
I absolutely don't. Anyway, let's take a look at the Vix. Can you take notes for me?
I'm not your secretary.
He pulled out his notepad anyway. He knew how this worked best. We'd trade off if needed, but it was almost guaranteed that I'd notice more things. And his handwriting is neater than mine. I knelt down to get a closer look at the body. Okay. Both these corpses seem to be teenage boys. Based on the hands, I'd say they were lovers. Based on the clothing and general body size, I'd put them between the ages of 16 and 19. Not sure if this matters, but I can pretty clearly tell one of them was Caucasian and the other was of African descent. Judging by the leathery texture of the skin and its brittleness, I think it's safe to say, though very weird to say, that these boys died from rapid onset terminal dehydration. 65% of their body literally just evaporated. Let the record show that I am seeing a wallet on the Caucasian kid, and I'm pulling it out. Okay. From his driver's license, this boy was named Carter Holloway, age 16, from Falcon Village. Damn. That's tragic.
I'll radio that into the station. We'll send Officer June to notify the family of both of the decedents.
Hold off on naming who he was with. Have June ask if he was seeing someone, male or female or other. Even if the boys are dead, I don't want to out them on accident.
Roger that. I'll go do that now. You keep looking.
Dean walked away. I carefully picked up the crucifix that had been placed between the bodies. I stared at it and let it twirl around before my eyes. That's when I saw there was a strand of hair attached to the necklace, and that the back of the crucifix had the letter E inscribed in it. I also took note of a wet patch of water nearby the body, and I noticed it was shaped like footprints. I touched it, and it was wet. The fact it hadn't evaporated was strange, and I could see why they called me in for it. We were most likely dealing with another metahuman. As I straightened up, bagging the hair and the crucifix for evidence and placing them in my pocket, I got a phone call. Without looking at the screen, I answered it. Hello?
Well, well, well. The city's finest detective hard at work.
Kit, why are you calling me? If you look at my video, you will see that I'm at an active crime scene.
Oh, God. Oh, God, I shouldn't have looked. Ugh. There goes my appetite. But tell me, Jordan, why do these bodies look like fruit leather?
I'm gonna assume that wasn't a gay slur that you blended in with a tasteless joke. And you know that I cannot discuss the details of an active ongoing case. Also, if you post the photo that I know that you just took, you will be charged with violating privacy laws. And if that doesn't change your mind, let me appeal to your heart. We have not, as of yet, identified these boys or notified their respective families. You have millions of followers. Imagine if their little brother or sister sees a corpse wearing their big brother's clothes.
Relax, I'll delete them. I'm not a monster. But seriously, off the record, what can you tell me? This is clearly not a natural death.
I can't tell you anything, technically. But when I last checked, bodies don't just do this overnight.
Fair enough. Now I have an unrelated question on a different piece.
Go ahead then, shoot.
So, word on the street is, interim mayor Barbie, aka Faith Flaherty, will be running unopposed for the mayor spot. How do you feel about that? Are you, as a council member, throwing your support behind her?
I paused. I hadn't really thought about that. Here's the thing. I have no real reason to not support Faith in her run for mayor. I don't even remember why I dislike her as much as I do. But one thing's for sure. I definitely don't trust her. Kit doesn't like Faith either, which I think is mutual, because they dragged her pretty hard the last time she tried to run for mayor a few years ago. Kit had ran a thing that was a pretty low blow, and let's be real, Kit was never exactly subtle, but what can you do? And then, a thought came to me. Kit, how would you like to break an exclusive news story?
Absolutely, yes, please.
Alrighty then. Meet me outside the estate tonight at 8 p.m. There will be a small soiree. You won't be disappointed. Oh, and Kit? Dress fancy.
I guess I'll have to break out my heels.
Kit hung up the phone, and I could practically tell they were doing a victory dance on the other side of the line. This was not a great idea. I knew it wasn't, but to be honest, I wasn't thinking about what I was going to do next, but thinking about who would be there. I sent a text to all of the founding family council, explaining that there was a meeting at 7:30 and that I would be hosting it at the estate. I received some confirmation from folks. I called to hire a bartender and servers and get hors d'oeuvres that would be ready in the next 10 hours. Normally that would be a lot to ask, but I know a guy. This would be a great chance to see William O'Hay and to see the Brennans in person. And perhaps, maybe I'd get a chance to discreetly question them. But first, to identify the hair from the necklace, I ran over to the newly rebuilt Blackburn Labs. Joanna was sitting at her desk, staring pointedly at a diagram of a pancreas, a chemical compound figure of insulin, and the DNA of a type 1 diabetic, and that of a regular person. It looked as though she was trying to interrogate the diagrams with her mind, even though Scarlett is the telepathic one in the relationship. I knew this look. I knew it quite well. This was the "this problem is so close to solved" look. It was the look that allowed me to, as owner of the lab, suggest to the board that she become the new CEO. She was staring, and I noticed tiny sparks of electricity hopping from finger to finger. Joanna didn't notice that she was doing that until I gently closed the door. She jumped a little, until she saw that it was me. Hey, Joe.
Oh, hey, Jordan.
Just dropping off a hair that I need sequenced. I left it with your assistant.
Okay, sounds good.
And I brought you a pet dragon named Puppy.
Alrighty.
Joe, Puppy isn't real. What's going on?
I promised the board a functioning prototype. If the premise here is that we want a way to re-engage the pancreas and get it producing insulin again correctly, as well as giving you an accurate read on your levels without mass-producing a bunch of synthetic pancreases or pancreas or whatever, then I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It has to be able to be powered by the body itself to do all of this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have that figured out? R&D made that specific kind of battery years ago.
Yeah, but we don't know how long it lasts for, and I am not willing to not have a built-in system to notify us when the battery is dying.
Doesn't the body contain a small amount of electricity at all times? Isn't that how the nervous system works?
Yeah, but how can we even tap into that without rerouting a pre-existing nerve ending which the brain can't even support?
I have no idea. But what I do know is that if anyone can solve this, it's you. But pace yourself. If you need an extension, you can have it. You are literally curing an incurable disease, so take as much time as you need.
Okay, you're right. Thanks, Jay. Also, got your text about tonight. What are you planning?
I'm trying to draw out those two families and learn what I can from them about the disappearance of Elizabeth Brennan. Based on what Ember had said about her father's assistant/hired muscle or whatever, I think something shady is going on between the Brennans and the O'Hays.
Good thinking.
They are confirmed to be there, Hey, if you get a chance, can you run a search of the cases involving that lawyer, Charles Brigham? Especially any that were involved at all with William O'Hay. Maybe we can find a connection there. Hopefully we get answers. And speaking of needing answers, I need to get going. I'm meeting with Dean's moms across the way in a few minutes.
Has Scarlett come up with anything yet about whatever that whole thing was?
No, she hasn't. Were you able to do a scan and see if there were any DNA matches?
Turned up nothing. No match in any database that came close.
Huh. Well then. Wish me luck on this. I have a feeling this is going to be much more of a headache than I thought.
Have you told him?
About what happened? No. No, he's apprehensive enough as it is. I don't want to cause him any additional stress.
I'm not in favor of lying to him, but I understand, Jay. Just be careful. I'll see you at the estate later. Scarlett's my date, obviously.
Oh, of course. All right. Love you, Joe. Almost as soon as I shut the door, Joanna looked up from the model of a pancreas and gasped.
Oh my god! I've got it! I've got it!
"30 minutes later, I was sitting at my desk across from Dean's two brilliant mothers. Anna McCrae's frame has always looked lean but sturdy. She has the body of a ballerina in her 20s, which, given that she was in her mid to late 50s, was extraordinarily impressive. I suppose that's what comes from years of acrobatics, trapeze, aerial silks, parkour, and a daily yoga routine that most people could never handle. Her dark brown hair was pulled back into a bun, and she was wearing leggings and a Wicked sweatshirt. She was a big fan of musicals. Ms. Emma, which I still called her out of habit, was not as slim as her wife. Her frame was more pear-shaped, with strong arms that were more muscular than mine. She preferred to spend the gym time, which the wives did together daily, lifting weights. Her hair was halfway between a pompadour and a masculine comb-over, a style that has always been a signal that meant, I am a very, very proud lesbian. She was dressed like a librarian, which, trust me, is a compliment. She had a light blue button-down shirt and a dark green plaid bow tie, and the shirt was tucked into a matching green plaid pencil skirt. This, or a variation of this, is what she wore every year that she was a teacher. Classic, put together, and stylish. Both their skin was smooth, with practically no signs of their age, though I did see a couple streaks of gray popping out for Ms. Emma. Knowing what I do about them, they would both display these proudly and confidently. Honestly, fashion-wise, and as life partners, these two women have always been killing it. They were two of my personal heroes, and had been since I first announced to the world that I was gay. Queer role models are always important.
So, Jordan, you sounded concerned on the phone. Is everything alright? Was it the cake? I told Dean that was a bad idea.
I don't know. I thought it seemed kind of fun. A little unconventional, never hurt anybody.
Nope. I absolutely won't do a red velvet cake with green frosting. But no, that's not what I called you about. This is wedding related, though. This is awkward for me to ask. I don't want to be intrusive or stir up anything negative. I know that this kind of thing is sensitive.
Jordan, you know you can ask us anything.
Exactly right. We trust you.
Okay. Alright. So, the other day, Dean and I were working out and trying to work through a case, and I asked him if he knew anything about his dad, and he said he didn't, but then he got really, really quiet, and it seemed like he was a little bit sad. I wanted to ask you if you could tell me anything you know about the man who helped you create Dean. It feels strange to call him father, since you both raised him, but calling him a sperm donor feels even weirder to say to your future mothers-in-law. That little joke got a laugh from Anna, and I smiled. I didn't want to lie to them, but they don't know that I'm Red Wing, and they don't know about Dean's powers either. I noticed Emma had raised an eyebrow at me, and shot a look over to Anna, who nodded at her.
We We never told Dean about his biological father. We do know who he is, but to be quite honest, we aren't sure where he is in the world right now.
I think he was last somewhere near Norway, but that was like 4 years ago, I think.
Something like that. We didn't tell Dean because it didn't seem important. Dean asked a couple of times when he was a kid, and I think that may have contributed to him feeling angry. You know, he had that aggression problem right up until he met you. And after that, he just didn't ask anymore.
Was he a stranger? A friend?
He was... It's hard to say.
He was an acquaintance, but not quite a stranger or a friend, really. He, travels a lot. He's a bit of a...
Cultural anthropologist? Yeah, that's right. I met him volunteering at the museum, and he was giving a lecture.
May I ask, why did you select him as a donor? Can't imagine asking someone you barely know for that.
Why not? Straight people get pregnant without so much as asking a name.
Oh, no, I know. I didn't mean to offend. I don't presume to know how all of that works.
Well, quite frankly, I decided I wanted to carry the baby to term, and he looked like he had, well, just the best genetics. He was tall, sturdy, bright green eyes and red hair, just like Dean.
Just like Dean.
Dean has grown up to look an awful lot like him. I guess it's that strong Irish heritage.
Indeed.
Now, I want to keep this between us. I don't want to push this one on Dean at all. And I can assure you I'm not going to contact him. I just want to know. Do you know his name? The couple looked at each other for a moment, seeming to have a full conversation with each other with just their eyebrows, which were impeccable, by the way. After about half a minute or so, Anna turned back to me with a smile.
Like I said, we trust you, Jordan. His name is Cedric Morrigan.
Same last name? Was he related to you?
No, I changed my name when Em and I got married. It was literally his only request of us. And he was giving us so much.
Ah, okay. I guess I understand. Now I have one final follow-up question. I slid the paper across the table to Emma specifically. It was a drawing of the marking that had appeared on Dean's hand during the fit. Does this, or the words Crow of War, mean anything to you? Have you seen it anywhere before, maybe on some of your artifacts?
Oh my god, where did you get this?
She sounded intense, like she was angry or about to shout at me. I guess I'd hit a nerve.
When did this appear around Dean? Was it on his skin?
About 5 days ago. But how did you...
It can't be. It's time, already.
Anna, come on, we must prepare. The fates have spoken and the call is on the wind.
Wait, what call? The fates? What are you talking about? They were up and almost out of the door in seconds. I rose to follow them. Emma spun around and stopped me with her look. Her eyes looked more piercing and serious than anything I'd ever seen in my life.
Do not speak a word about this to Dean, but keep a very close eye on him. Swear an oath to me that you won't tell him about any of this. Do you swear?
Yes, okay, I swear I won't tell him. They turned and the door closed sharply behind them. All I could think was, what the hell just happened? I always preferred the great room for social gatherings. The estate had 3 large spaces that would be suitable for entertaining, not including the Corvus room located beneath the basement level. There was the ballroom, which I'd never actually seen used for anything in my 28 years on the planet. There was the dining room, but there was no real reason to use that space if I wasn't planning on serving a 4-course meal. And then there was the great entry room, with its grand staircases and balcony. This room was a large square, but the staircases had an elegant rounded curve to them. I have a very strong memory of one Christmas party where my father descended from the left side of the balcony wearing a red tuxedo and a red velvet side cape with white trim on the bottom. My mother was wearing a beautiful white princess-style dress with ruffles and randomly placed green and red gems. She had fairy wings coming out the back of that dress that were made of actual silver. and they had put me in a little green tuxedo. And honestly, that was the best they could do, because I was 5 and there was no way I was going to deal with anything fancy. Somewhere, there's a Christmas card photo of us in front of a tree in the very spot I found myself standing for 23 years later. Tonight, I was wearing a black tuxedo jacket, pants and a tie, and a red shirt. I was holding my second glass of particularly delicious red ice wine, sipping on it casually as I scanned the crowd. One thing that always was true about these functions is that the founding family council members with children over age 13 always brought their children, in an effort to force them to socialize and make friends, which usually just ends with them being incredibly bored. I had no intention of keeping these people very long. I spotted Faith in a pink peplum dress, and then I spotted Kit, who winked at me. They wanted maximum drama. I began to walk towards the stairs, clocking Joanna, Dean, Scarlett, Kieran, and Jared around the room. I jerked my head towards Dean and Joanna, who pulled away from their conversations to approach the stairs. Joanna whispered quickly in my ear.
Quick update. That hair you dropped off, it belonged to Elizabeth Brennan. And I found that Charles Brigham Esquire has represented William O'Hay in a dozen cases. Mostly racketeering and money laundering, tax evasion, tenant complaints, suspicion of organized crime. But there was one case in particular. Honestly, it was hard to see because the records were tampered with, but the plaintiff's name was redacted, which would only be that way if the plaintiff was underage. So basically, in my professional opinion, fuck that guy, he's a total creep.
Roger that. When I was about a foot away from the steps, I turned slightly and saw William O'Hay, and I paused, putting on my most fake plastic smile. Mr. O'Hay, such a pleasure you could make it.
Of course, Jordan.
It's a shame your daughter couldn't attend. How is she holding up?
She's still in the hospital. She's in a coma. The doctors are hopeful any day now.
Well, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. God, you know, it's just so strange how the children appear to be going missing.
Indeed. It is a strange...
What did you do to Elizabeth Brennan, Mr. O'Hay?
Excuse me?
Just listen for a moment. I'm on a time crunch and have an announcement to make. I have it on good authority that you were involved in the disappearance of Elizabeth Brennan. Oh, and if you try to leave, I'll take that as an admission of guilt. So, sir, don't get too comfortable. These young women will have justice. I will see to that. I turned and walked up the stairs to stand on the balcony. I clinked the pen that I always had inside my tuxedo jacket against the wine glass. All eyes turned to me. Ladies and gentlemen and gentry, I would like to welcome you to this FFC soiree. Thank you for coming out tonight. It truly does mean a lot to me. As you all know, currently, Faith Flaherty is running for election in the coming months. I must say that I believe Faith has done some real good in the mayor's office. She has mended many, many parts of our fair city that have either been harmed or neglected by the previous mayor. She has been quite competent in her official capacity. This is, in part, a celebration of her success. Let us all raise a glass and applaud her. The crowd obliged. I looked at Faith, who looked confused and was blushing. I gave her a winning smile, much better than my fake one. I don't like her, but credit where credit is due. She has done a decent job. I pressed on with my speech. However, today we are celebrating something else. I am pleased to announce that I will also be running for mayor of our fair city. I have experience as a humanitarian. I have worked with the police. I have built the things that serve this community. I will continue to do these things But what I'm pledging to do as mayor is simple. If there are so many issues happening all the time, that speaks to a structural issue. I want to find that structural issue, and I want to mend that. And please listen to this. I think Faith is a wonderful politician. But I have the correct amount of resources, some of which might come in handy for this position. I am not asking you right now to decide who you might want to vote for. I'm simply here to tell you that there is more than one candidate now. I see New Ark City, and I see what kind of beautiful and resilient people live here. They deserve a candidate they can trust. And that candidate will be... I didn't finish my speech. The doors were shoved open so hard that they sounded like they would break on impact with the wall. The crowd spun around, and I knew things had just taken a turn for the worse. Standing there was Elizabeth Brennan. She looked, quite frankly, terrible. Her hair was wet and matted. Her nightgown was wet and torn in places. She was barefoot. I saw that on her right ankle were the remnants of a rope and chain. It all began to click into place. She didn't seem to walk, but float towards the crowd at a tired zombie's pace. The crowd was shocked into silence.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Am I interrupting something? I'm not here to make waves. Please, continue. Don't let me rain on your parade.
Really? Are all of them going to insist on power-related puns? Elizabeth! Where have you been?
I've been looking for someone. 3 someones, in fact. 3 someones who need to answer for what they did to me. 3 someones who are in this room right now.
She scanned the crowd and spotted the people she was looking for. When she spotted them, she grinned a wicked grin.
Ah, yes. Here you are. Come now, kneel before me and all your friends. I've got a story to tell them. Come to me.
No one moved.
I said, come to me.
She raised her hand, and there were 3 screams. 3 people staggered forward from the crowd. William O'Hay and Mr. and Mrs. Brennan fell to their knees, facing the onlooking crowd, still moaning in abject agony. Elizabeth rolled her eyes at their cries of pain.
Oh, just cut that out. Here, why don't you choke on this?
She pointed at them and pinched her fingers together. All 3 of the adults stopped speaking and grasped at their throats, making gurgling, choking noises. It sounded like they were drowning, and their lips were starting to turn blue. Elizabeth unpinched her fingers, and they stopped choking, now gasping for air on their hands and knees. Elizabeth addressed the crowd.
You all know these people. You know my mother and my father, and you know William O'Hay here. But what you don't know is that my mother and father have been broke for years. Their savings dried up because mother had a spending problem and daddy just loved to drink and gamble. And you know who swooped in to save us by buying my parents' house in secret and letting them live there rent-free? You guessed it. William O'Hay. I bet you all think William O'Hay is a nice man, don't you? I bet you all think he did a great thing, helping my family in a pinch. Well, that's where you're wrong.
Elizabeth, darling,
Mother, I don't recall giving you permission to speak. It is not your turn to speak. It is my turn. So shut up. And look out at all of them as I tell them who you really are. I know I said a moment ago that the terms were rent-free, but that isn't strictly true. See, Dad couldn't pay off some shady bookies that worked for William O'Hay, and so, to appease good old William, he offered him my mother's body, which you'd think he would have accepted. Well, this shouldn't come as a surprise, but they'd been having an affair for years. Why do you think he bought the house to help her in the first place? Well, Mr. O'Hay rejected the offer. So, my father and my mother offered him me. And he accepted. Didn't matter that I was underage, because as my dad said the first night Mr. O'Hay came to collect, who would believe the word of a 15-year-old girl anyway? That went on for 2 fucking years. Every month. Until something happened that none of these idiots planned on. I got pregnant.
And there it was. All clicked into place. The rapist and child molester couldn't have his daughter's best friend be pregnant. And what does a shady rapist do when he encounters such an issue? Simple. He pays to have it taken care of. 6 months ago, the night of the shockwave, Elizabeth Brennan had been kidnapped and brought to the pier with a cinder block tied to her ankle as the water hit her lungs. As she was going under and losing consciousness, the shockwave must have hit her and activated her powers, bonding her to the water. Somehow, the water must have cocooned her in a coma-like state. That must have released her when she sensed what was happening to her friend the previous evening. And now, she was here for revenge. And at that moment, I decided to let her have it. I looked to Kieran and Scarlett, both of whom looked shaken. Jared was nearby, his hand hovering over his pistol, before moving over to his stun gun. Smart planning. I tapped my head, and Scarlett read my thoughts as I shook my head. I need all of you to slip away and get into your suits. Wait for my signal to hit the lights. She passed on the message to Dean and Joanna, who turned and snuck into the hallway that led to the balcony. Elizabeth raised both of her hands in the air, and the 3 adults rose above the crowd, about eye level with me on the balcony. I ducked behind the banister and snuck backward into the hallway to get into my suit. I performed the transformation spell, but I could still hear and see everything.
You know, there's a legend that stretches from the hills and lochs of Ireland to the Ozera of Russia to the European shores. Even the indigenous people of this nation have this same legend. Every country has their mermaid myth and legend, but do you know what they all share? They all share a common origin. You see, when an innocent girl is abused and abandoned to death by the very people she was supposed to be able to rely on, and she chooses to give her soul to the sea, she becomes a water spirit. She becomes a mermaid. And in Ireland, these spirits are called the Marrow. The Irish, they have a more specific legend. that says those spirits remain to enact their revenge. They get their retribution, and the ocean helps them obtain it. Well, I am the Marrow, and it is time I get my revenge. Mother, for your sin of adultery and letting your boyfriend rape me for 2 years. Father, for your sin of greed and selling your daughter to save your own ass. And William O'Hay, for your sin of being a dirty, disgusting bastard and trying to have me drowned. I, Marrow, sentence you to death.
As she said this, it was like there was a sudden burst of swirling wind in the hall, as all 3 adults began to writhe in agony. Before our eyes, they began to desiccate, all of the water being extracted from every part of their body, which flowed out of them and formed 2 giant orbs hovering in Elizabeth's hands. The corpses dropped from the sky and hit the ground. They practically turned to ash and powder. I emerged back into the light and looked on, and I know this is wrong, but part of me was cheering for her. A part of me was proud of her. But this was still wrong, and I knew it wouldn't stop with just those 3, and that we had to stop her before she harmed anyone else. Elizabeth turned around, and her eyes were a dark blue, the dark blue of an angry ocean.
Come on, folks. Who's next?
Stand down, Marrow. Now.
Just as everyone turned back to look at me, Joanna took out the lights, which gave me time to hop down from the balcony, stopping just short of hitting the ground using my rope dart, which I had wrapped around one of the banisters. I stood up, aware that Joanna, Dean, and Kieran were behind me.
Everyone, get out of here.
What even are you? God, it's like minnows fighting a grouper, truly.
Listen, if you want to call yourself a stupid fat fish, just remember those were your words and not mine.
Excuse you?
Good one, Red.
She looks more like Catfish Carrie to me.
Sick burn, Warbird.
How dare you?
Boys, I think it's time we focus.
Cardinal is right. Marrow, your vengeance streak ends now. Guardians, let's dry up this mess.
Marrow launched water at me. I dove to the side, rolling into an attack position. I looked where I had been standing, and I saw that the water had left a dent in the linoleum. This bitch! Does she even know how expensive linoleum is to fix? I watched out the corner of my eyes as Warbird and Whitehawk descended down the stairs. I launched forward, lunging at the girl with my dart. The part of her I tried to slice dissolved into a fine mist and then reformed. I was now slightly to her side. I felt her grab hold of the water in my body and lift me up and throw me across the room, where I hit a pillar with a crack. Fuck, that hurt. I crumbled and watched as Warbird stopped dead in his tracks and was raised into the air. He struggled against her control. I looked around to see how I could assist. I remembered Warbird had a taser on his utility belt, but I didn't know exactly what would happen if Dean got electrocuted. Scarlett crouched down next to me, and I could see her readying some of her paper spells. I saw them and I nodded at her. I put small force fields around her little yellow birds, which came to life and flew towards Marrow. Marrow noticed them and tried to wash them away. As soon as they were engulfed in the water, connected to Marrow, Scarlett whispered a command, and 3 lightning bolts struck the girl. She screamed with rage. Warbird grabbed her and held her down.
Warbird, did you get hit with that?
Tingled a bit, but I'll be fine.
Good. You may have to tase her. Cardinal, I need you to do that spell. You know which one. Cardinal, please. There is no time.
Scarlett was panicking. Joanna had put a hand on her shoulder and nodded. I tossed Scarlett the glass vial with a cork that was in my pocket. Scarlett began chanting.
You cannot fight me. You cannot fight the tides. I am the...
Quiet down, girly.
The powers began to flow out of her mouth. They were a bright blue color, and they flowed into the vial that Scarlett held. When it was done, Scarlett put a stopper in the vial and stood up. What Scarlett noticed, upon standing up, was that everything was silent and still. Nothing was moving at all. All her teammates remained rooted to the spot.
What? What is this?
Ah, isn't this a lovely surprise?
Oh my goddess, it can't be.
Oh my dear, but it can.
What are you doing here? How did you find me?
Oh, darling, I'm not here for you. I'm here for this vial.
What? No, you can't be. You were dead.
Oh, I am very much alive, my love. Indeed, I've never felt better. Well, I'm off now. Tell Jordan and the gang how much I appreciate your handiwork, and I'll be seeing you all again very, very soon. Ta-ta, Scarlet Crescent, my little red moon child.
The collector vanished, and time began to flow properly. Scarlett was inconsolable. I took one look at her and noticed that the vial was gone.
It looks like the collector paid us another visit.
I know who he is, and I think I know why he's here.
Thank you for listening to Red Wing. Stay tuned. There might just be a post-credits scene. Today's episode was written by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. Today you heard the voice talents of J.V. Hampton Van Sant, Ellie Hirschman, Amanda Jacobson, Skylar Paring, David Alt, Christine Osimo, Jordan Cobb, Graham Rowett, Katie Dixon, Georgie Yukiko Donovan, Kyle Akers, Dylan Mobley, and Nathan Foster, and Dylan Mobley. For the complete cast list, please visit redwingpodcast.com. The title this week is based on the song Blood in the Water. I first heard it on the Riverdale soundtrack. You'll find a link to that song in the show notes. Episode art this week is by Alexis Bristow. Our music is composed by Nico of We Talk of Dreams. If you want to listen to any of these themes, please visit our website. Check out our show notes for links to our merch, our social media, and our website. As always, stay safe and fly high, heroes. The Celtic wing of the History Museum was dark at this time of night. The security never was very good in this facility. But then again, did it really have to be? With magical vigilantes fighting through the city, artifact thieves figured it was probably best to try places like New York City or even the Vatican. Weirdly, those places were less risky. However, that night, two figures stood before an abnormally large stuffed raven. Next to the raven on either side were matching dark robes that resembled the dark part of a peacock's tail feather. This was strange, as it was after hours. But it was even more strange because the giant stuffed raven was speaking.
The time has come. We have all heard the call, and now we must answer it.
Are you certain? Is he the only one?
Are there truly no other heirs to the throne?
Do you doubt me?
No, of course not.
Fear not, for you have raised him well. Now he must rise and take his destiny, and become the king he was always meant to be.